Guten Morgen.
Good morning. We would like to talk about digital language assistance. Talk to travel, we call this. And we want to elucidate how Alexa and Google, to some extent Apple with Siri, are already screening us in our everyday system. And we thought right now for ITB we'll write an ebook on artificial intelligence, and we looked at just how relevant AI is going to get for tourism and what is happening now when the little Amazons or the little Google devices get right into our households. What got us into this subject was really the big players like German railways. They're already using Alexa quite keenly. Yeah, I go to Deutsche Bahn and set up my own station. This is going to be your station, Berlin Central Station. So this sort of voice assistant, it's a voice-guided system. Even today, you can use Alexa Echo and look at your train connections and control what you're doing. You can reserve or book a ticket, a railway ticket, and you can enter your destination station in order to find out what the best connections are. And what's really exciting isn't just Amazon Alexa, it's the technology that's at the backbone of it all. Exactly, because there are two trends that we've been basically seeing for a few months, if not even years. One is voice control. In other words, we're not typing things into a mobile phone or a PC. We're actually telling our device, an Amazon Echo or a mobile phone, what it is supposed to do, what's to look for us, start for us, do. That's one thing. On the other hand, something which is getting better and better is the artificial intelligence of the devices. They don't just listen, they understand. They pick the relevant information bits out and then turn that into the action I expect the tools to inform. They're getting more and more intelligent and more better because they can extract what we really want. And the exciting thing is that those two trends are currently coming together. They're forming something even bigger, and we can tell you why. Well, if you're looking at the figures, you see pretty quickly that at Google, in the index of the word recognition for Google, you find it's 10 million words. That's quite a bit. But voice recognition is actually just 90%. It may sound a lot, but the step from 90 to 95% is a huge one. And when you get to 95% voice recognition, that's when it gets even more interesting for us, because then we can talk to these devices in a much more authentic way. However, you notice that users are adapting. 20% of all the search queries which are being done in Android devices are already done via voice control. In other words, we've already got to a fifth of all the users. 1 in 5 people send their queries voice controlled. And interesting is also the type of term that people enter. The inflationary users navigate home to the navigation. And nice, best place is home. Mum and dad is best to be. Call mum and call dad. These are the next most popular voice commands. But even then, you see, these devices will be able to recognize our preferences much better, and that will all be automated. And once all this is being used inflationary, which means that search queries come via voice command, then of course the question we need to ask ourselves is what sort of market share we're talking about. The big players are really in it, and they're also the ones that push the technology. Google, Apple, with Siri, and Microsoft and Amazon. And interestingly enough, Amazon have virtually no market share. Why is that? Because the statistics here was made before Echo and Alexa really came to the fore. Stefan will tell us more about that, how this changed so quickly. And another interesting thing is, what do we use these voice commands for? On the one hand, it's to call contacts. In other words, that's voice-controlled phone calls. Navigation is an absolutely crucial thing, particularly from the context of use. In other words, you're sitting in your car, and you don't want to get distracted by looking somewhere else. Instead, you just use a voice command. Search info, typical search function, even of those who use it, half of them do that. Or, of course, writing texts. Interesting also, my father-in-law is far-sighted. He does that because he can't really recognize the little keys. It's not just the digital natives that go for voice commands. There are all sorts of different reasons that may cause people to use the voice control opportunities. And what is really interesting, looking at the systems we've got, we also notice there is a bit of a change. In the past, we always said the always online generation is into that, but that's beginning to change. For the big players, where they're really trying to get their markets into the market, and we're getting into a listening orbit, because anytime, any everyday situation, I've got these devices with me, every one of us has. And that means you can always listen. And so Amazon and Facebook and Samsung are all the same. There's not much to choose between them at the moment. We do see a bit of a competition of the systems. You just talked about Amazon and Alexa. Google has its own home system. Samsung has just started. They got the former main developer of Siri, who they bought in with his own system. Apple, obviously, Siri. Maybe they're lagging behind a bit at the moment. But all the big players are currently developing their own systems, so they can reach out to the users directly and use their own systems to get into everybody's living room. What's really exciting about what we're seeing is something which makes clear it's not just the devices we should look into. It's what's really exciting is the systems that are emerging, because what we really see is happening is a sort of ecosystem struggle taking place, because platforms are being created through which data can be got into people's private area immediately, all sorts of data. And at the moment, it's very difficult to predict which of the systems is going to have the edge, whether it's going to be Amazon in the future as well, because currently with the ecosystem, Amazon has really set a big benchmark, and maybe the other players will follow suit. What's really interesting with all these ecosystems is that it creates direct access to the guests when we're looking at it from a tourism point of view, but also direct access to individual consumers. And of course, these devices are ubiquitous. They're available everywhere. We're not just talking about a little assistant you may have at home. You can use the same device in the car. You can basically connect your whole home, and you can go straight into your holiday destination while carrying all these devices. Another thing which you currently observe when looking at Alexa is that it's not really important that you buy Amazon afterwards. It's a system that also gets into the devices made by other manufacturers. If you take Amazon yourself, you've got these individual skills, these sort of app types you can use as Amazon and Alexa as a company, and there are over 7,000 now. Deutsche Bahn, Expedia, Kayak, they all have their own swirls with this. But another thing which makes it so powerful, and I think it's going to be a real game changer, is the fact that this Alexa system also gets into other devices, your fridge or your Whirlpool or your smartphone. It can directly integrate there as if it were an own platform of its own, as it were. 5-6 years ago, well, no, a bit longer, 8-9 years ago, Android managed to do that with Google's, i.e. getting into smartphones. That's exactly what Amazon is also trying to do. And apart from the ecosystem, that's going to be one big ecosystem. The question which we are asking ourselves is, what will all this ultimately mean for tourism? And how may I already experience it? Or rather, what is it that we're going to talk about in 5, 10, maybe 20 years' time? And I've got 7 theses that I think will either right now affect us directly or will certainly affect us in the future. One is that the voice commands, the listening of the assistants that we know already means that this is going to be with us, especially when we take trips. And the sort of trip assistants that we know these days are going to be primarily voice controlled in the future. We already notice that it's beginning, because we are currently experiencing this sort of genesis of travel portals where they're using their own assistants. In other words, we've got a booking, and they have booking experience. They have their own travel agents. We've got Google Trips, of course, that made a big splash last year. But the platform's being built up right now, where at the destination end you already see, what are the monuments, what's worth seeing, or they provide a travel plan, and you have the travel plan as a ready-made app for you. So what we're seeing there is the basis of what's going to happen in a second step, that a Google Trips or booking experience or Instalogate is also going to be voice control, because right now the big travel portals are putting the basics in place. And following from that, you see, once you book and plan using such assistants, the question is, why not take them with you? I mean, if Google knows my travel route already, so why not ask Google during the trip where I might maybe go to a museum or a cinema? So this vision of the permanent digital travel assistants will become real. And by means of voice command, it's going to be possible immediately to ask a question and, depending on context, get the proper answer from the assistant, because the assistant knows me from previous bookings, previous trips. So depending on the situation and the context, the assistant can make proposals likely to please. In the video, if we'd had it, you'd have seen how a woman doesn't just book her trip via Expedia with Alexa Echo, but also books the rental car she wants, which she just does as an aside while we're still working in the kitchen. A third thesis we have is that these language assistance means that we will optimize language. In the part, we've optimized search engines by going on a website, added keyboards, structured things a bit, and now we'll have to optimize language. Very important factor is to be fast, because, as I've said already, it's not in a year's time that we're going to deal with voice commands. We're already dealing with it. And the sooner systems such as Alexa, Echo, Google Home, and what have you understand our websites, the better we prepare for that, the better we will be able to use all these technologies and systems. How do we do that? On the one hand, the data we're dealing with are structured. You look for something like the woman in the video. She asks for a rental car. She asks for certain times, places, where she is, her own location. These are all structured data that must be available on the website in an easily understandable way. That's one thing. But the other thing is what the website has needs to be optimized as to language. In the past, you entered Hotel Munich Central Station into a hotel. Now, voice commands, and giving the best hotel, including wellness, next to the central station in Munich, allowing children. So we tend to speak in sentences, and the website needs to be optimized for that. And we need to prepare for just such a question. The next thing is that we often, when we have voice control, we're often in a mobile context. So it's very important that the landing page, in other words, where we get when we're using voice control mobile communications, we have a proper system, now book, now call. So all the things that the users want to do immediately will be provided instantly. Maybe a messenger will be integrated saying, what you can do now. So mobile context is extremely important. That's a new search engine optimization, the new requirement that we better get used to. Right, so this is going to be with us when instigating a search, but it's also going to be with us when we're guests traveling somewhere, when we are on the spot, in the accommodation, the hotel, whatever. Because, of course, I can use these voice assistants even more easily, because within my accommodation I can enter my preferences more easily with the assistant. So as soon as I've reached my room and I want to control the lights or the music, I want to do that with a system I already know and trust, Alexa, Siri. It'll be much easier for me. And these systems already know my preferences, after all. And we experienced that even new. Some of the hotels doing that on a test basis or as a pilot, like loft hotels, where you have Siri control, which allows you to, control the lights and the music, where you can say what you'd like to see on television, etc. So there we already see that my preferences, that Siri, in this case it's Siri, knows, can be used. Another example, which was well marketed in the media, that's the Wynn hotels. They've decided at all their Las Vegas-based hotels to be completely equipped with Alexa Echo, where yet again all the control devices in the hotel room, including my choice of music, can all be voice controlled using Alexa Echo. In this context, there's another perhaps interesting piece of information that Alexa Amazon has have announced recently. In the new version of Amazon Echo, personal language will be assigned to the individual. So in other words, if two people are in the hotel room that both communicate with Alexa, Alexa will know who is just talking to Alexa, which allows a much more customized, personalized reaction. And if you think that's a vision, then actually things go much further. It's not just that these systems also can assign language to an individual. There are also developments that make clear the systems would recognize how you feel at the moment. Are you annoyed, irritated, happy, angry? As you can see in these little smiley faces, there are tests like the red dot in the center top right of the picture, and these points will wander all over when you say things in a different way. If you say stop the music, then clearly your mood is a different one. It's not a totally relaxed situation. And if you link this up with health, for example, and health tracking, then it's quite possible that you can go so far as to say Siri or Alexa, say, well, you're planning to go to a museum, but actually the way you slept and the way you partied last night, I don't think you're in the right sort of state of absorbing information from a museum. Perhaps you better go to a sauna or a museum instead, or a cinema. So the travel assistant knows me, knows how I feel, and can propose activities accordingly. So, and point 6 is language is no longer supposed to be an obstacle, a barrier. And that doesn't mean man and woman difficulties understanding between the genders. It's actually all about going to another country where you don't understand the language. In the past, you had to have either an app with you or an old-fashioned dictionary. Problem is, if you go to China, even the dictionary doesn't help much, and I can't just enter Mandarin terms. So what we have is simultaneous interpretation. I can enter my question, and an app like the ILI transponder, which is about to be published, will immediately translate that, and I can then play a recording to somebody else, like in this video. These two don't really know. Oh, what's this? I don't know how to buy this ticket. So you ask a question, they're going to local, they understand immediately, and they immediately give their answer, which they tell the assistant, and I can then get that in my own language. So language is no longer an obstacle, even if you're talking about Chinese. So on the travel market, that sort of thing may be very important. When we're talking about language, particularly when we're thinking about how do I need to speak so that the systems understand me, that is yet another aspect to be borne in mind. Namely, we're going to listen much more intensively. In other words, the language itself and language control, including optimization, is only one part, and particularly from a tourism point of view, the other part is also very interesting, namely, to what extent listening will become much more relevant again, because noises, sounds may give us a completely new type of inspiration, also enthusing people for a particular destination or somewhere to travel. In the discussion so far, that hasn't really played a role because we always come from voice control, voice command. But now in another area, we are really seeing this development happening. Because in parallel to the voice command system, for many years we've been seeing an extreme boom when it comes to headphones. So headphones have become a new luxury item. because we can reduce sounds, we can reduce volume, we can have special sounds with us that we're listening to on public transport when moving somewhere on the roads. And if you combine this trend with voice control devices, you end up with a host of new, quite sensitive ways of addressing people, other than by video that we're always talking about, because we're always considering images. But sounds may well give us a very different type of tourism experience, not what we are so used to. Right, now your turn. And something which is very important with our language assistant, if you, for example, have Alexa Echo, you will find that on a regular basis you were disappointed. You say, oh, it's not really going to be good. What is the added value? It's minimal. But please bear in mind that all these systems are still very much toddlers learning to walk. But the thing is, they're going to grow up very fast, but they're not going to wait for us companies. We, as I said earlier, need to prepare for this future now. We need to be ready for these systems. We need to be prepared so that we can adapt our systems and information in such a way that the systems can work with them. So we shouldn't blame them for not knowing, understanding a few things now, because they will in the future. And in order to do away with some prejudices, privacy and data protection, for example, many people legitimately still say, I don't want somebody else to permanently listen to me and provide all the details to me. We had the data protection thing with websites. Even when it comes to letters, there is confidentiality as an issue. So the subject isn't new, and language-based systems won't make it any worse. We've always had to deal with privacy and data protection issues. The second thing that's important is dealing with such a system. It's still unusual if you see somebody on a bus, for example, who reads an email or issues commands, voice commands. But just think back about 15 years ago, it would have been unthinkable to use your mobile phone in public. It was considered not exactly a good thing. Today it's normal and nobody questions it. And we simply think it won't take that long until it's completely normal to have a little watch in our mobile phone or glasses, and we simply use any of these devices to give our voice commands to. So in a few months, probably, we can forget about the problems we are encountering now. Thank you. We are not digital language assistants. We're real people. And you are cordially invited to ask us your questions in analog mode. We're quite happy to answer that as well. Thank you.